Here is what can happen in a crash when you are not wearing a seatbelt. Even at the lowest speed of 40 kilometers an hour, this would result in a serious injury or death. Now let's see the same crash for those wearing a seatbelt. Wearing a properly adjusted seatbelt reduces the risk of serious injury and death in a crash.
Our lives are busy. We try to accomplish so much with so little time. Unfortunately, this can lead to poor decisions like deciding to speed when we're behind the wheel. Each year, far too many people die as a result of speed-related crashes in Victoria, with even more being seriously injured. About 30% of deaths on Victorian roads involve excessive speed or not driving for the conditions. We're paying a terrible price for speed, but is it actually getting us there quicker? The answer is no. Travelling a few kilometres faster than the speed limit does not save you much time in reality, but you are increasing your risk of a crash, which could result in death or serious injury for you or someone else using the road. All to save yourself a few minutes or maybe just a few seconds. Travelling at 5 kilometres an hour over the speed limit in a 60 km/h zone will double your risk of a crash, resulting in serious injury or death. Slowing down by just 5 kilometres an hour can reduce your risk of being in a crash by 15%. There is a significantly increased risk of a crash if you speed, and increased risk of serious injury or death to you or other road users. But it is not just the crash risk you need to think about. If you speed, you will be caught, and the penalties are serious for all drivers, but especially for drivers on their Ls and Ps. You may lose your license, get heavy fines, and even have your car impounded or confiscated. To reduce speed-related crashes, the Victorian Government and Victoria Police are actively enforcing speed limits throughout the state. There are fixed, mobile, and point-to-point speed cameras operating throughout the state, both in urban areas and on rural roads and highways. Victoria Police use a range of speed detection devices to catch speeding drivers. This includes handheld laser speed guns and in-car speed detection equipment. Make the smart choice when you drive, and don't speed. The thing about speed is that the faster you travel, the longer it takes to stop, so it's harder to avoid a crash. When you need to stop in an emergency, it first takes time for you to react. This is usually around 1.5 seconds. During this time, you will keep travelling at the same speed. Then you need to apply the brakes and bring the car to a stop. Your stopping distance is the distance travelled while you are reacting plus the distance travelled while braking. So at 40 kilometers an hour, it will take you about 26 meters to come to a complete stop. If the road is wet or gravel, it will take longer. Often, people don't realize that they are over the speed limit and they aren't monitoring their speedometer closely. When traveling, it's a great idea to measure your following distance to the car in front by using 2 seconds. That's counting 2 or more seconds between you and the car in front of you. You can measure the 2-second gap by finding something near the road, like a post or a tree, and then count. By the time the front of your car reaches that object, at least 2 seconds should have passed. We've got speed limits, but under certain circumstances, actually driving to the conditions is more appropriate. Things like dirt, gravel, windy roads, low light, rain, and weather events can make it difficult to drive safely. If you don't feel safe, slow down. If you're not comfortable travelling as fast as the signed speed, it's okay to travel slower. Don't let your passengers or other drivers pressure you to go faster than the signed speed. This would put you and others on the road in danger, and it certainly doesn't get you there faster. It's no secret that when we drink, we sometimes do dumb stuff. That's because drinking can give us false confidence to engage in dangerous behaviour, but affects our ability to do the most basic human tasks. Drinking alcohol or taking drugs affects our judgment, so we're more likely to make poor decisions. Alcohol affects our vision, reflexes, and coordination, making it less likely that we can stop or swerve in an emergency. It also affects our ability to judge speed and distances accurately. Drink driving is one of the biggest killers on Victoria's roads, with around 1 in 5 drivers and riders killed having a blood alcohol concentration over the legal limit of 0.05. For younger drivers with learner or probationary licenses, the limit is 0. A lot of people assume that if they're driving below the legal blood alcohol concentration, they aren't impaired. This isn't true. In fact, if your blood alcohol concentration is between 0.02 and 0.05, you are twice as likely to have a crash. Blood alcohol concentration is measured by a breath test. Most people find it difficult to know how much alcohol is in their blood, as there are so many factors that you need to consider. How much alcohol you've consumed, the period of time over which you consume the alcohol, how big you are, your gender, if you've eaten, what else you've had to drink, how fit you are, how healthy your liver is. It turns out that after taking drugs or alcohol, many of us don't know when we've sobered up. We may think that we're no longer impaired, but the drugs or alcohol are still in our systems. Once alcohol is in your system, your body has to process it, and it's very slow. Many people think eating fatty foods like chips, pizza, or burgers sober them up faster, when really they just slow the absorption of alcohol into the bloodstream. Once alcohol is in your system, it's in. The only way for its effects to wear off is for your body to process it. So there's really no magic cure when it comes to sobering up. Like alcohol, drugs can affect your driving. Some can make you drowsy and impact your concentration, while others can increase risk-taking behaviour and cause aggression. They can also affect your reflexes, alertness, and muscle control. And the effects of drugs in your body can linger long after you've taken them by altering your mood and emotional state. If you have drugs in your system, you're 10 times more likely to crash. Driving while impaired by drugs is a serious road safety issue. In the last 5 years, approximately 41% of all drivers and motorcyclists killed who were tested had drugs in their system, and some drugs stay in your system for days or even weeks after using them. Police can stop you for a drug test at any time. And it's not just illegal drugs. Over-the-counter and prescription medications can affect how you drive. Always seek advice from your doctor or pharmacist to understand how your medication might affect your fitness to drive. As a learner driver, you're not allowed to have any alcohol or drugs in your system when you drive.
We all love sleep, but many of us would say we don't get enough. This leads us to feeling run down and fatigued. Fatigue is a state of being physically or mentally tired and is estimated to contribute to a significant number of crashes. It can make it hard to concentrate, slows our reaction time, and impairs our judgment. So the last place we want to feel these effects is behind the wheel. Fatigue can be caused by driving for a long time, driving when you would normally be sleeping, or exhaustion from a long day at school or work. It can also be influenced by your age, physical condition, medical history, and use of drugs, alcohol, and some medications. Young drivers should be cautious about the build-up of something called sleep debt. If you get less than 8 hours of sleep, you can build up a debt of the hours you miss. So, if you only get 5 hours of sleep on Monday night, you owe 3 hours of sleep. If you only get 5 hours of sleep the following night, the debt builds up and you owe even more sleep. If you're driving, this can result in difficulty concentrating, slowed reaction time, daydreaming, and even something called a microsleep. This is when you can fall asleep or nod off without even realising it. It can last between 2 and 20 seconds. During a microsleep, a driver will not react to a hazardous situation, such as a red light, a curve in the road, or their vehicle is drifting onto the wrong side of the road. Even when you don't feel tired, you can't predict when a microsleep will happen. Driving at night with a sleep debt is incredibly risky because our bodies are naturally supposed to sleep at this time. Many people have a sleep debt, particularly young adults, because of their lifestyle. It's important to get good quality sleep so we can stay safe and focused on the road, especially at night. Remember, once you are fatigued, the only cure is sleep. Have you ever been in a car and felt like the driver's mind wasn't completely on the road? Driving is complex, and we need to work hard to avoid distractions. Some distractions take your mind off the road. Others take your eyes off the road. Or you can be physically distracted, such as taking your hands off the wheel to grab something. All forms of distraction increase your risk of being involved in a crash. And it's not just because you take your eyes off the road or hands off the steering wheel. You're also thinking about something else, and this can affect your concentration, emotions, reaction time, and decision making. There is the lingering distraction, sometimes up to 20 to 30 seconds after engaging with the phone, including using voice activation functions. This can easily lead to you not seeing the lights change, not maintaining your speed, drifting from your lane, and missing other important hazards in your driving environment, increasing your crash risk. You'll need to manage distractions when you are driving. Putting your phone on silent or putting it in the glove box, the best idea. But mobile phones aren't the only distraction you'll need to manage. You are going to need a safe and quiet environment in the car when you are learning to drive, one with no distractions. When you first learn to drive, it should just be you and your supervising driver. They'll also need to minimise distractions. That means not using their phones as well. When you have more experience driving, you should talk to your supervisor about introducing 1 or 2 different distractions. Something like playing the radio or following audio directions on a GPS can be a good way to get used to having some potential distractions while you still have the support of a supervising driver. When you've got your licence, managing distraction becomes even more important. Passengers can be very distracting, particularly for new and inexperienced drivers. Even the passenger chatting away in the back seat can be distracting. That's why P1 licensed drivers can generally only take one passenger who's aged between 16 and 22. Regardless of your licence type, you should avoid carrying more than one passenger during your first year as a solo driver. And if your passenger is distracting you, you can ignore them, ask them to stop, or to get out of the car. But while passengers can be distracting, they can also be helpful to you as a driver. They can change the music, help with navigation, and take charge of your phone so you're not tempted to check it.